Hi, my name is Bree Perry-Knoll, and I'm doing my movie project on Hostiles. The film was directed by Scott Cooper, and it was released in September of 2017. So the cast, or at least the main characters in the film, are Captain Joseph J. Blocker, who is played by Christian Bale, Chief Yellow Hawk, who is played by Wes Studi, Rosalie Quaid, who's played by Rosamund Pike, and the man that I've picked to do my project on is Master Sergeant Thomas Metz, who's played by Rory Cochrane. Just a brief summary of the movie. It's about a troop of men who are recruited to take the chief of the Cheney tribe. His name is Chief Yellowhawk, and they're ordered to take him back to his homeland in Montana, from New Mexico to Montana. And at first, a lot of the men are really put off by this, because even though it's their duty to do so, and they've got orders from their boss to go do it, since it's kind of the end of a lot of the wars between natives and pilgrims and the just white people, they have a lot of grudges against Native Americans, and in fact, the movie starts out in kind of an internment camp, or like a prison that they've been keeping natives at against their will. So they take this dying chief and his family, his son, his daughter-in-law, his daughter, and his grandson. They take him on this journey up to Montana. And along the way, they meet some people, like a woman who lost her entire family. She lived out on the plains, and some Comanche natives came and burned the house down and killed her 2 daughters, her husband, and her newborn baby. So she was also another candidate I was thinking about having for this particular movie project. But I thought that every time I remember this movie, I always think of Sergeant Metz as being kind of the prime person for what I'm going to diagnose him with later on. And I don't want to give away a whole lot of the movie, or I guess I give a lot away when I talk about what I'm going to diagnose him with, but yeah, I just suggest really watching the movie, and it's only about like 2 hours long. So Master Sergeant Thomas Metz, he is a veteran. He's known his best friend, Captain Blocker, who's the main character, Christian Bale, for a long time. They've been in the service together and been through a lot of war and battles together. They both have grudges against Native Americans for killing their friends and comrades. There isn't a whole lot presented about the character in the movie himself, so I don't know his age or where he's from, but I do know that it says that he used to serve as a gray coat during the Civil War, and throughout the movie he continues to express his feelings of guilt and depression and hollowness, which a lot of, even Blocker kind of dismisses as, oh, you'll be fine, that kind of stuff doesn't exist. And ultimately, Thomas Metz does succumb to his own trauma and the trauma from war and he takes his own life. So this clip I have is of Metz explaining his melancholia to his best friend Blocker.
I think I've reached the end of my soldier. They say I'm not fit. Said I have the melancholia.
No. No, there's no such thing.
20 years I give this union. They took my guns, Joe.
Yeah, so as you can see in that clip, he knows that something's up with him and that it's not normal to feel the way that he does. And he expresses that to Blocker. And in this next clip, it's right before he goes off and kills himself. They have a prisoner in their camp that they're taking to be tried, and it's a fellow soldier that they've worked with in the past, and the prisoner ends up escaping, and Thomas Metz goes after him to take care of him, because the criminal, or the rogue soldier, killed one of his friends while he was getting away. So he went after him, and this is kind of the clip before he goes and does that. And his friends can tell something's up too.
What are you doing, Tom?
I gotta move on.
What are you talking about? When you get back inside your tent, you're gonna freeze.
I don't feel anything. You've been a good friend, Joe.
So what wasn't showed in the clip was Thomas Metz going and talking to the chief in his tent and offering him some tobacco, and he asked for forgiveness for all the things that him and his people have done to the natives. And then he goes off to catch that prisoner, and he ends up getting him, and then shortly after shooting himself in the head, and they find him on their route. So I diagnosed Metz with PTSD. As we know, post-traumatic stress disorder is when a person is exposed to a traumatic event or a stressor. And the DSM-5 has 8 criteria required for the diagnosis of PTSD. And that's the person is exposed to a stressor or a traumatic event. There's intrusion of symptoms such as upsetting memories. The person avoids trauma-related reminders. And number 4 is negative conditions and mood begin after the trauma, not from underlying substances or other things, which is number 8. Number 5 is alterations in reactivity and arousal, and symptoms last for more than 1 month, and you're functionally impaired. My justification for this diagnosis is, I believe, since he was a soldier his whole life, the excessive warfare and exposure to the slaughter of his fellow soldiers, friends, and the native men, women, and children, that he murdered, I think, that haunts him. And some examples from the criteria that the DSM-5 talks about that relate to Metz, or Sergeant Metz, is he recalls distressing memories often, and he expresses thoughts and feelings of guilt for the things that he's done. He holds negative thoughts and feelings of guilt for what he's done. I already said that. He is depressed and has a hard time sleeping. He recklessly goes after runaway criminal, the guy that got away. He goes after him alone and in the middle of the night when it's raining. And ultimately, he does take his own life. As far as treatment goes, I think a combination of treatments would be the most effective thing for him, such as antidepressants or some sort of medication that might help him sleep or be less depressed. I also think that cognitive behavioral therapy is a good move for him, since it has been proven to be pretty effective for people suffering from long-term PTSD, and it mainly focuses on teaching them to learn skills to help support life outside of therapy. You basically, in cognitive behavioral therapy, you identify, understand, and change the thinking and behavioral patterns of the patient. And by going through their bad memories and exposing them to it, a therapist can analyze the memories from a factual place of mind and not one of guilt or shame. And that's also called cognitive restructuring. Along with these methods, I do think that an invaluable asset to many people with stress disorders would benefit from a service animal. And I think that definitely would work for Sergeant Metz as well. And yeah, those are my source pages. And that's it. Thanks.